Welcome to the Prospect Warehouse podcast. This is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on X at Fantasy Aceball. And today we're talking about the Boston Red Sox. So who better to bring in to talk about the Red Sox than Eric Cross? So we got Eric Cross here at Eric Cross MLB and all over the place, all over the internet. Everybody knows Eric Cross. So Eric, you got the new backdrop. Got the new house. Looking good. Looking good.
Thank you, sir. Feeling good. Yeah, I chose this room as my office in this new house I bought a couple months ago because of this fireplace. This was the master bedroom, but figured this would be good for video and looking good so far. But yeah, it's a good system to talk about here with the Red Sox.
I have to ask you because you have a folded American flag behind you, military flag.
Yep.
Relative, assuming.
Yes, that was my grandfather was in World War II. He went all over the place. Actually, on the couch in my office, I actually just found when I was going through some boxes the other day looking for our Christmas stockings. I found his old duffel bag, knapsack that they would take around with them everywhere, and he wrote down everywhere he went. Over in China, Panama Canal, all these places he was stationed. Back in the war in the 40s, which is a kind of a really, really cool thing. It's about 1943. So that was my grandfather, and when he passed in 2003, we waited till my grandmother also passed in 2012 to have the joint military funeral, and they did that. They gave it to my uncle, his the oldest son first. Then he knew how close I was, so he gave it to me. So it's been front and center in my bedroom and now my office ever since then. So yeah, one of the my most prized things that I own.
That's awesome. I love that. So my grandfather also fought in World War II, and my dad is hoarding everything. He will not share. He's like nobody gets this until I die. He's like too bad. SOL until I die. So he has a samurai sword, which is really what I want, and my dad is like, I'm going to give your brother the samurai sword, I think, and then I'll give you the guns and stuff like that because you're the shooter out of the two of you. And I'm like, I don't care about these old guns that you need gunpowder to shoot. You've got to get I'm not going to do that whole thing. So I'm like, right. Just give me the samurai sword. I do not care about any of that other stuff. Give me the sword. That's the coolest thing. So
yeah, that's pretty sweet. That'd be cool to have.
Yes. Yeah. Until I get a letter from someone who's like, that's my family sword. You please return that. And then you're guilt tripped into returning that at some point.
Right.
But I will not disclose any of the symbols on the sword so that I don't get guilted into having to return it. I will go that route. So we're talking Red Sox here. We got top 20 Red Sox prospects and number 20 in the system for me. And I guess I should preface this whole thing by saying that I did not include Marcelo Mayer because number one, I'm just sick of talking about him. He's been around forever. He should have graduated at this point, except he got hurt. And it's oh, come on. Do you really have to get hurt and ruin this graduation for us? So we're just not talking about him. He's not included on this list. So anybody who's going to listen and they're like, where was Marcelo Mayer? Is what's going on with Tim? Mayer didn't make the top 20. What? So that's what's up. That's just what's happening. So even though when we did the tool shed pod, he was eligible because it kept it simple. KISS, 50 innings pitched, 130 at bats. Keep it simple, stupid, and it's easy for everybody. But not doing that on this one.
I was just so tired of trying to figure out the service time. So there'd be some guys who are like, well, I think he's at 45, but maybe he's at 44. I'm like, it was just such a pain in the butt. I'm like, all right, the 130 and 50 is so simple. Just go, check Baseball Reference, Fangraphs, Savant, whatever. Very easily accessible in dozens of spots. Like, all right, boom, they're at 130 at bats. Boom, you're off. There's no service time. And then guys like Dalton Rushing, for an example, graduated from service time 2 months before they even got to their 130 because they're playing so sporadically. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw up the 45. And there's, some of those players like Meyer end up being on the fence and eligible in mine, but not eligible in other spots. So there's a little bit of gray area, but it was just so much easier.
Yeah, that's the move with the draft, I think. But, I write my articles and I'm doing my prospect rankings. So I'm going to pick and choose who I want, who I don't want to talk about anymore. So, top 20. Number 20 is Dorian Soto. He's very far away, 17-year-old switch hitting shortstop from the Dominican Summer League. And basically, like, didn't really do much damage this last year, but he did hit for a good average 307, 362, 428 slash for Soto. Only 2 bombs, 1 stolen base. Hasn't really shown game power yet, but he is supposed to have pretty good exit velocities. Like I saw that he has apparently had up to like 102 90th win recorded. But again, this is coming from Dominican Summer League, so it's like, who really knows? It's, you know what I mean,
Right.
as far as the data. But like, he's supposed to have some pretty good power. I mean, he's 6'2", which is good size for a shortstop. But I wanted to add him to the list, even though he's far away, because I feel like there's some projectability here. Kind of a fun player, maybe a guy to be on the lookout for. Some places have him higher than this, but based on the production, I'm just not comfortable putting him any higher. But I did want to get him on the list. So where are you at on Dorian Soto?
Yeah, for sure. And he's one of those guys where, there's a lot of, potential here, but you could say that about, several guys in this Red Sox organization. So I think you're going to see a wide range of rankings on him and, several other guys that are some like the lower level guys that have shown little glimpses of upside, but haven't really, don't have the track record yet. And yeah, with anybody in the DSL, the numbers are always, I say take everything with a grain of salt and not at face value, especially when you're looking at like contact rates, because not everything is kind of inputted fully or correctly. So you might see like, oh, that contact rate says 58%. It's not really that. So it's you kind of take everything with a grain of salt. But yeah, no, he had a solid showing in the DSL last year. Hit 307, 362 OBP. Like you mentioned, not a lot of game power yet, but has that really like impressive projectable frame where he's already kind of one of those bigger bodied shortstops, but still has some more room, I think, to add some bulk. So I think you could really see that game power take off in the next year or two. I mean, he's still only 17. He won't even be 18 until middle of February. So still very young. Comes stateside. Some complex ball, maybe even some low A at some point this upcoming summer. But he's one where I think he could really shoot up rankings. Like, if we were to fast forward 12 months from now, doing this again for 2027, wouldn't surprise me if we're like, oh, Soto's number 6 now or something in the system. Like that potential is there. I've heard, a lot of positive reports from, people that cover the Red Sox, and I've seen him live. So everything's been positive so far. It's just very small track record, but he's definitely kind of like one to kind of follow because he could really pop this upcoming year.
Yeah, and I guess I should also preface that the Red Sox organization, this top 20 list has probably had the most movement of any organization. Like in the last like calendar year, I feel like this has had the most names moving on off to different teams all over the place of like any organization. They've just been
Yeah.
trading prospects left and right, promoting guys super fast, which is fun. It's a ton of fun, but there's a ton of movement on this list, like way more than most organizations. Like Preller is like next is probably like number 2. Like anytime the Padres get guys, those guys are moving somewhere. But tons of movement on this list. So number 19 is Yoeilin Cespedes. This is a guy that I was very, very interested in like a year ago at this time. Kind of a rough year. I'm going to bring up his F scores here real quick. So a 110 power, 102 hit, 94 discipline, 105 speed. So pretty solid F scores besides the plate skills here. A 118 age adjusted WRC plus because he was at A ball the whole year, didn't move up. I thought, Eric, that after how he like completely dominated the Dominican Summer League and Complex League last year, I thought he was just going to be a fast mover and be one of these guys who has no problems. But I don't know. He struggled a little bit. Like it wasn't a bad year by any means. 227 batting average, but he had a 269 BABIP. So it's like obviously like some of that had to do with luck. Contact rates were kind of right in line with what he was doing before. So it's not like he was hitting the ball less or anything like that. He did walk less and strike out a little bit more, but that's to be expected from a prospect as they go up levels. But 10 bombs, 11 steals, it's not like it was a bad year. Even the batted ball profile was pretty solid, like 25% line drive rate, only a 32% ground ball rate. So like nothing crazy, concerning as far as the batted ball profile. Maybe he pulls it a little too much. Like 60% pull rate is pretty crazy. That's that's maybe like I like air pull, but that's like a little too pulley. Like that's going a little too far that way. But he's a 5'8", but he does hit the ball up to 110 mile per hour EVs. So like he does get into some power as a small guy. So Cespedes, I'm just curious, where are you at on him right now? Like, are you up on him, down on him, kind of like just keeping him in the same spot? Like, what do you think about his year this year?
Yeah, so it's funny that we kind of went from Soto to Cespedes, because it feels like Cespedes was kind of in the spot last year that Soto was this year, where he was coming off some impressive rookie ball seasons, but then just kind of floundered out this year, and that's why for every guy that breaks out and succeeds, there's 10 that don't. That's the old adage with prospects. So yeah, we get plenty of Sotos every year, but can they sustain it when they come stateside, when they move up to full season ball? That's a huge adjustment. Just coming stateside, obviously, new country and everything, but then going from playing, the shorter, 2-month or whatever seasons to the full 4-5 month seasons, that's a big adjustment. And, Cespedes is one where, I have dropped him down my rankings, but I'm far from like out on Cespedes. I'm not. I'm giving him a little bit of a pass just because he was still very young for the level he was at. I mean, he was 19 in low A, but there are some warts, like you mentioned. The one thing I was going to go right to was that pull rate that you mentioned, because we love the pull air rate, especially they have it on Savant over the last year or two now. But yeah, there is a point where being too pull happy can really hurt you, especially in the minor leagues as you jump up levels, because as you start facing more and more advanced pitching as you get closer to the majors, they're going to pick up on that. Like, all right, this guy loves to go pull side, and he loves to get turn on that fastball in. So let's go soft stuff away, or let's just pound the outer half of the plate. I've seen it a million times, especially when you get to like double A, where I think that's like the biggest jump in pitching talent from high A to double A, in my opinion. So seeing a lot of that personally here in Portland, Maine. You see a lot of that, and that's when the guys really struggle, and they need to adjust. I mean, I think there's plenty of talent there. You mentioned the raw power is still pretty impressive for his age, but given that he's not a great defender, not a bad defender, but he's definitely a bat first guy, and not like a super quick middle infielder either. So that bat is really gonna have to carry him. And I still think that there's plenty of good there. Contact skills are decent. Still has that power projection. So he's a guy that I could easily see bouncing back and having a much better 2026. So yeah, it's way too soon to be out on him or anything like that. But yeah, he did have to take a little bit of a tumble down rankings, admittedly so, given where he was going into the year and how he performed this past year. But still a guy to keep an eye on him without question.
Yeah, for sure. Number 18 is a guy who's playing in the outfield, playing first base. Kind of weird because he's playing like in center field and then also at first. You don't really see that too often. But it's Justin Gonzales, and he's in high A now. He got promoted to high A, was performing a lot better in low A. 18 years old, big dude, 6'4", 210 pounds. F scores love him. 101 power, 105 hit, 106 discipline, 105 speed. So really good F scores. The age adjusted WRC plus is 151. So all the metrics that we have at MLB Data Warehouse really love him. 111 extra base hit plus. The weird thing is for him is that just like even with this big size and big power, he didn't get into a lot of power this year. Only 4 home runs. That's because he's hitting the ball on the ground a ton. Like a 57% ground ball rate on the season, 67 at high A is just way too many ground balls. But he does hit the crap out of the ball. He's had 113 max EV. He's had some 110 EVs. So like he hits the ball really hard for a young guy, for an 18-year-old who made it all the way to high A, we must say. So like that's really great. But the ground ball rates right now are just a little bit Jordan Walker-ish. So like I like it. Like I like him, but I'm not ready to make him like a top 10 guy. I'm not ready to like put the crown on him at this point in time. But there's a lot here to like with Justin Gonzales.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's one of the most intriguing players in this entire Red Sox system. Like you just look at him, some of the video on him, and like you mentioned, he has been playing some center field, but he really just kind of has that feel of a good corner outfielder. I mean, a lot of power, both in terms of the bat and the arm. He's got a really good arm, cannon for an arm, really. So I do think he ends up kind of moving off of center over to one of the corners. I mean, I could see that arm playing well, patrolling right field. That spacious right field in Fenway. If he's still with the Red Sox, he's still a few years away. Probably doesn't even debut to 2028 or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot to like here. I've heard a lot of positive things about him, and that power. Even though, like you mentioned, his we talk about the pull air rate. His pull ground rate. That doesn't sound right whatsoever. But like you mentioned, his high ground ball rate and a high pull rate. I mean, pull rate was well over 50%, and the ground ball rate, as you mentioned, was damn near 60%. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to hit the ball, get that home run total up when you're just pounding everything, to your pulse out on the ground and it's grounding out so often. But just the fact that he does already show, super high EVs. He's showing, pretty solid contact abilities as well. Like he's far from, an all or nothing, kind of power guy. There's some solid contact abilities there as well. Kept the K rate very much in check. Over 400 play appearances, only struck out about 16% of the time, and a solid 9.5% walk rate too. So yeah, I think hopefully he can kind of start get to that pull side, like air power a bit more, elevate more. It's easier said than done. I mean, people think it's like an easy thing. It's not, but he's so far away. So much development left where there's time. It's not like he has to correct it by next season. He can still work on it over the next couple of years before he gets up to closer to the majors. But yeah, there's a lot of upside here. Like him and Soto, kind of like the two really two of the fun, buzzier, lower level guys in the system that hopefully at least one of them pop. As me being a Red Sox fan, I'd love to see these guys pop off and become like the next wave of top prospects for the Red Sox. That they have that potential. But yeah, like really good corner power hitting outfielder. That's kind of like what he projects as. So hopefully he can take that step forward and start getting the ball in the air a little bit more next season.
Yep. Number 17 is a pitcher I like a lot. He got hurt, and I'm not really sure where he currently stands just because of minor league injuries. It is 17 Jojo Ingrassia, who projects maybe as a reliever because of the injuries. He missed a lot of 2024 from an elbow injury. This year it was a shoulder injury, but I don't know, did he get surgery? Is he better now? What happened? He only made 4 appearances this year, but in 4, I guess it was not starts. I guess they were piggybacks. He pitched 17 innings, so he's pitching, 4 innings each time out, but at 27.4 K minus walk rate. So he does have good stuff, in pretty good command, but it's will this dude ever stay healthy? He is a smaller guy. So he's a 6'1", 170 lefty, as you can see if you're watching on the YouTube or on Xvision. But pretty nasty stuff for Jojo. Gotta love the name too, Jojo Ingrassia. But it's will he stay healthy? Because the stuff we've seen so far is really good. And if he is healthy, because he's 23 now, probably reliever, maybe really good high leverage reliever if he can actually keep it together. But where are you at on Jojo?
Yeah, Gracia, he kind of there's a big cluster of arms in this system where they've shown some intrigue in for one reason or another, but there's so many guys that have missed so much time. And then another one that we'll talk about later, in this episode, that it's just hard to get a good gauge on them because you don't really have a lot of data or a lot of bigger track record to go off of. Like you mentioned, he made. He pitched 4 appearances this year, 17 innings, had 58 and a third last year. This is a guy that was drafted in 2023. So we're now, right around 2.5 or so years, from when he was drafted, and we have 75 and a third innings to go off of. Granted, he's been pretty darn good in those 75 innings. He's been getting a lot of ground balls, a lot of strikeouts. Had a K rate 33.9% last year and batting average against of 175. So, it was even better, almost a 40% K rate in low A in 2024, but it's hard to really take much from such a small sample size. But The one thing with Ingrassia, from what I've seen on him, like you mentioned, there's pretty solid command and control here, and the secondaries are pretty solid. He kind of goes with 3 or 4 secondaries at times, but primarily, cutter, sweeper, changeup. They're all kind of similar velocity, though. They're all kind of like in that mid, like 84 to 87, 88 range. They kind of can blend together velocity wise at times, but very good movement profiles on those, and he can miss bats, but just the fastball, it's at least from what I've seen. I haven't seen him live yet. Hopefully I'll maybe get to see him in Double A this year, but just the video I have seen on Ingrassia, the fastball just it's not bad, but it's just kind of underwhelming, kind of bland. Doesn't really do much for me. So kind of got to wonder how that fastball plays, as he kind of gets in up to higher levels, doing Double A, Triple A, closer to the majors. But definitely a guy where if he can, we've seen it before. We like Connelly Early's fastball didn't really do much for me, a year or two ago. So I'm not saying he's gonna be pop off like Early did, but we've seen fastballs improve, and Red Sox obviously have a great development system, especially on the pitching side. How much they've done on that side the last half decade or so. So he's one where he's a good system to improve that fastball, and if he does, I think you can see him really rise up rankings this year.
Yeah, I think so too. Just the health, if he can do that and just being healthy, those are the keys. Number 16 is the second rounder from the Red Sox in 2025, Henry Godbout. He is infamous or famous or whatever for his hit tool. So 309 batting average in college, 8 bombs, 6 steals. But in his small sample size with the Red Sox this year, 13 games, he hit 341, 473, 477. Kind of profiles is like your Jacob Wilson-y type, Luis Arias type guy, like really hit oriented. 85% contact rate is pretty sick. 18% walk rate with a 10% K rate. So walking more than he's striking out. The main thing for him is like how much damage is he actually going to create? Like 8 home runs with a metal bat. It's like, okay, what is that over a full course of an MLB season? 10, maybe? If he can hit, I feel like if he can get to 12 or 15 home runs, this is a really nice fantasy player. If he's under that, it's like points leagues, or if you need batting average. But the thing is, the hit tool is so good, he's probably going to be a major leaguer. And 6'2", 190, so maybe he can get into more power as he matures. What do you think about Godbout?
He kind of gives me, it's not a direct comp, but just like there was another, hit tool first, like leading the way guy in the Sox system, for the last few years. He's now in the White Sox, kind of like a Chase Mydroth. And again, that's not like a direct comp by any means, but, that profile with, the hit tool being like by and large the best tool by, a solid margin can work. Like I said, if you're going to have one standout tool, have it be the hit tool. Because if you have, you can hit the ball 800 feet, but if you're going to hit 150, you're not going to make it to the major leagues. You could be the fastest guy on the planet. You can't hit. You're not going to make the major leagues. Same with defense. You can track down every ball in the outfield and throw the ball country mile, but that hit tool is the most important tool. So, hey, if you're going to be, I say if you're going to be 60 grade in one tool and 40 in the rest, yep, give me that hit tool. And that's basically what Henry Godbout is. And first of all, that's not a good name, like Henry Godbout. That's just a really strong name. I love that name. It's very, very baseball like name. Baseball players have like the best names, I feel. I don't know what it is, but yeah, you mentioned like the contact skills, very, very good. A guy that just does not strike out much at all. And it's a really professional hitter. And you saw that right off the bat where he walked way more than he struck out. It was only 13 games, as you mentioned, but same thing in college. His last 2 years at Virginia, more walks than strikeouts with a K rate under 10% each of those 2 seasons. Can use the entire field. Doesn't really elevate much, but with his profile, you don't really want him to elevate much. So, this is a guy that he's got to get up to major leagues pretty quickly. I mean, I imagine he probably starts in Double A, and he's probably up to Triple A. Does he debut this year? Maybe not. Maybe not. But I think by early 2027, he's knocking on the door to Boston, where he fits long term with all the other players in this system, especially in that infield. Who knows? But yeah, I think you said it best. This is a major league bat, and one that should get there quickly. A high floor guy, but when you look at fantasy focused rankings, yeah, he's a guy that doesn't really rank super high because, yeah, you're running like, all right, is he just 10 home runs? Does he even give me 10 steals? Like, he wasn't a guy that ran much in college either. So, kind of limited in that power speed that we covet so much in fantasy. But this guy's going to hit. This guy's going to give you a good average. He's going to give you a good OBP. So, it's really format dependent. But I think you'll see a wide range of rankings on him depending on, fantasy versus real life. And then within the fantasy world, format to format, you're going to see, I think, a wide range of rankings. You always do with this profile. But yeah, the bat is maybe one of the most advanced bats in this entire system.
Yeah, think maybe like a Thomas Sajazi type fantasy profile, I guess.
Yeah.
Where like coming off the bench, playing multiple positions, getting hits, but not a lot of power, not a lot of speed, and not full playing time, maybe. Number 15, Freili Encarnacion. This is a dude. He's actually a third baseman. I don't know why I got shortstop there. I guess I typoed it. He did play one game at shortstop back in 2024. So there we go. But Freili Encarnacion, I had to look this guy up to see if he was related to any of the other Encarnacion MLB players, and I could not find any relation. But this dude smashes the ball. He has posted, apparently, right? We don't have this in like logged in StatCast data or whatever, but apparently he's hit a 120 mile per hour hit before. And then he has logged a 117.2 home run. So that's like definitely in the books. So this guy has some massive power, but besides that, it's kind of a mess of a profile, really. He did Freili, and by the way, you spell Freili Freili. Freili did have 18 home runs this season as a 20-year-old at high A, reached high A, was way better at A-ball. Once he got to high A, struggled big time, but he did have, a 242 BABIP at high A. So like maybe we give him a little bit of a break for that, especially age to level, but he's running 70% contact rates. So you almost have like your Christian Encarnacion Strand type profile here with Freili. But you know what? If you can hit the ball 120 miles per hour or even 117, if that is the real max, then you should probably be in fantasy talk because that is exciting. So what do you think about Freili?
First off, why is it? Maybe I'm missing someone, but it feels like every like notable Encarnacion player we've had has been like a big power guy. I'm trying to think if there's been like any like of like the lighter hitting middle infield like high average guys with the last name Encarnacion. It feels like every one of them, Edwin Encarnacion, Christian Encarnacion, Strand, Freili. It's like they're all power hitting like corner infield types. I think I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird coincidence, but yeah, no, he's another one that kind of fits in like that potential next wave of potential top 5 or top 8 prospects for this Red Sox team. If the development kind of goes according to plan next year, and I think a lot of that comes down to the approach because we've seen the bat when he makes contact, the bat is really good. The contact skills have been little on the lower side, like generally in the upper 60% range, kind of just around 70%, give or take, and kind of higher swinging strike rates as well. But raw power there for days, like easy plus power guy, and runs a little bit too. Not a burner by any means, but definitely it shows the ability to steal some bags and be aggressive when he does get on the base path. But you mentioned like there's just a lot of aggression there. Walk rate was pretty low. Really has been low for a while now. It was fine in DSL 3 years ago, but since then it's been really like basically that 5 to 6% range. So he's a guy that while he still hit 18 home runs last year, that's solid in 114 games. He's one where I think a little bit more patience could do him a lot of good, and just kind of letting those pitches come to him that he can really do damage on because he has a higher swing rate. But if he just shows a little bit more patience, waiting for those pitches that he can really do a lot of damage on, he's a guy that, I wouldn't be surprised if he popped like 30 home runs between like high A and double A, in 2026. The power's there. As long as he can keep that contact rate above 70% or around 70%, maybe he's never more than like a 240, 250 guy, best case scenario. But if he can keep it in that range with having the power that he has and maybe hopefully get, improve the on base abilities a little bit, there could be something here. We'll see. And this will be a really big year for him as he kind of transitions to Double-A, whether that be right off the bat or later on in the summertime. But yeah, I think this would be a really telling year. Like, all right, is Encarnacion going to be something that could be a major league power source, or is he going to be kind of another one of these dime a dozen, high power guys that just can't figure out the hit tool enough? So yeah, really intriguing guy. So I'll be really intrigued to see him when he does get up here at Double-A, see what he can do against more advanced pitching.
Yep. The F scores, by the way, give him a 108 power, 108 hit, an 86 discipline is quite atrocious. 105 speed, kind of sneaky speed with 11 steals for a bigger power dude. So kind of interesting on Freili Encarnacion. Number 14 is starting pitcher Anthony Eyanson, who was drafted out of LSU in the 3rd round. Nice little signing bonus out of the 3rd round. A sneaky pick here. 1.75 mil in the 3rd is a decent amount of money for 3rd rounder, but really good season at LSU. 25.9 K minus walk rate, 3 ERA, which, ERA in college is whatever, but 8% walk rate. So struck dudes out, didn't allow a lot of walks. He's known mostly for his breaking pitches. The one big question for him is his fastball, which is kind of like why I don't have him higher in the rankings, because obviously he was really, really good at college, and LSU is SEC, so playing against pretty good competition. But if you don't have a good fastball, it makes things a little bit tougher. And it's not like it's the velocity. He throws, he can hit up to 98, but he's really living in the low 90s. But since he can hit 98, the thing is, if he adds on velocity consistently and gets up to more like 94, 95, 96 is where he's sitting, then that could completely change his outlook, I think, over time. What do you think about Eyanson? I'm going to throw some video up here of him.
Yeah, no, he's really intriguing. When the Sox got him in the 3rd round, he's one where I was like, all right, this is someone that they could really, kind of get into their system, get their hands on, so to speak, and kind of make him pop off as a prospect, because like you mentioned, there are some good traits there. I mean, command and control, pretty solid. Maybe average to above average command and control guy. He has 2 good breakers, upper 70s curve, kind of low to mid 80s slider as well, and more. It's more of a your old school gyro slider as opposed to like the sweeper that's become so popular over the last handful of years. But both those can really miss bats. Just getting that fastball to a point where it's an impactful offering. If you improve that fastball, and the velocity is okay, like you mentioned, it's kind of mediocre velocity, at least for a righty these days. But if you can kind of maybe get a tick or two more there, improve the shape a little bit. It's not really the best shape either. Doesn't have like a ton of riding life to it. But if the Red Sox can kind of improve that fastball, get to go with those 2 breakers, I think you could really have something here. He also has a changeup as well, but that's like a distant kind of 4th offering. He really likes to go to those breakers. It shows a really good feel for spin. So I'm not even like overly worried about that changeup at this point. It's really like the X factor for him is that fastball, But now, obviously they just drafted him, just 5 months ago or whatever it was. So I think getting through like a full spring training, a full year in the minor leagues, I think you could really see some improvement there. It'll be really fun to see because there's a lot to like here. Kind of like we said with Ingrassia, where there's some good secondaries, but the fastball needs some work. But it'll be fun to see if that happens this year because he's a really fun arm to watch. Just that fastball needs to take that step forward in 2026.
Yep, for sure. Number 13 is Miguel Bleis. Been around forever. I feel like he's been around for like 4 or 5 years, and he's still only 21 years old. But he did have a pretty nice year this year. So like kind of like a bit of a bounce back really season for him because he had a rough season. 2024, he had only 220. He did have 38 steals. But this year we had 14 bombs, 27 steals, still only hit 222. But he's been running pretty low BABIPs for whatever reason. I don't know if that's just like a natural thing for him to run bad BABIPs or if that's just like ill luck multiple seasons in a row. But 125 extra base hit plus, 107 power, 100 hit, 97 discipline, 124 scores on the F scores. You can see he's very aggressive on the base paths. 2024, a 47% attempt rate when he was on first, 34% in 2025. So super aggressive on the base paths, pretty efficient in the 80s. So he'll probably keep running based on those efficiencies. But I think he's a pretty interesting guy. Been around for a long time, has pedigree, can hit the ball hard. He's hit it up to 112 before. So there's enough here that like there's prospect fatigue, and maybe you can get good value on him. What do you think about Bleis right now?
Yeah, I mean, he's another one, kind of like Cespedes, where his stock is kind of taking a little bit of a tumble over the last year and a half or so. But at this point, I think especially with the Roman Anthony's graduated and the Myers and the Campbells and all that have graduated, I think you could still make a case that if you're talking about just pure upside, ceiling, best case scenario outcome, that the highest upside for any Red Sox hitting prospect could be Bleis. He's at least in that conversation because there's a lot of good raw tools. I think that's the best word I can use to describe him is raw. Where he's been in the system for like 17 years now. It feels like I feel like I've been writing about him forever. He came over in 2021, so it has been a long time. About 5 years now since they signed him. But there's a lot of good fun tools here. It's just been kind of hard, taking a little bit longer for the Red Sox to kind of mold those tools into a finished product because, there's still a good amount of raw power here. He's a really good athlete. He shot 27 steals this past year. He proved his efficiency as well over the last couple of years. He was a guy that got caught a bit too much in the kind of lower levels of the minors, but that's improved. So like there's good power, good speed, and the contact skills, they don't stand out, but they're fine. I mean, in 2025, 72, 73%, even a little bit higher on that in 2024, and about a tick higher, not like super high swing and strike rates or, K rates are, 23, 24%, 25% in that range. That's not terrible. Like you mentioned, the BABIP's been a little low, but that kind of, you see that happen a bit when, it's a super high pull rate. I mean, he was over a 60% pull rate this past year between high and double A. Last year it was just under 60%. And same in 2022. Like he's been a very, very high pull rate basically every year of his career, generally in that upper 50s, low 60% range. And that really can limit, a player, especially when, the air rate's fine. So it's not like he's hitting too many ground balls, but, with that high of a pull rate, again, like pitchers, they have all the data in the world available to them, so that it's going to be a surprise to them. Like, oh, he pulls a lot. They already know that going into the game, and they'll pitch accordingly. So that really is, I think, what's limited to him is just his batted ball angles and that super high pull rate. But he's still really fun. If you're in a dynasty league, I think just because the perceived value is taking a hit when you look at, he slashed 222, 300, 385 last year. Nobody's really excited about that slash line. But when you look at, kind of like under the hood and all these fun tools here, I think it's definitely worth the risk because if he kind of bounces back and improves in those areas, he could really shoot up rankings this year. If he doesn't, then, you probably didn't give up much to get him. So it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to lose much sleep over it. So I think it's, low risk to buy low and potentially pretty high rewards. Yeah, he's still pretty fun for sure.
Yep. Number 12 on the list is Juan Valera, who I have listed as a starting pitcher. That's what he is right now, but he's probably going to be a relief pitcher. Juan Valera really reminds me of like Emmanuel Clase. Like he might just be like your future Emmanuel Clase. Hopefully he doesn't bet on baseball. But this dude is 6'3", 205 pounds, fastball slider. He throws 100 miles an hour. But his slider has cut to it, so it's got ride to the glove side rather than run. So you're not going to get a lot of Ks on it probably, and it's more like to elicit bad contact. So I think you just got like a reliever probably because he's just literally it's fastball slide and then like 90-mile-per-hour slider, and his changeup is terrible unless he develops some more pitches. But fastball slider as a reliever, when you're throwing 100 miles an hour, bad contact, probably ground out double plays, galore. Seems like he could be a very, very, very good reliever. Worst case scenario, if he can't develop that third pitch. What do you think about Juan Valera, Eric?
Man, he's really fun. I mean, he's another just, example of how good this Sox system or the Sox organization has been in identifying and developing pitching talent, both in terms of the draft, acquiring guys via trade, and the international market as well. They've kind of hit on all three fronts. And Valera is one of the more fun arms I think in all of baseball. I mean, you look at the velocity, the really big, strong frame, and the fact that he is just power, 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 and a guy that does a pretty good job at limiting the walks too. I mean, it was definitely much higher last year when he was in the complex and in low A, especially in low A, the walk rate really ballooned there, but only 6% walk rate this past year. Not a huge sample size, but 38 innings is not. It's not a tiny sample size either. So to have a 6% walk rate there is really fun. He just kind of got BABIP to death at times. That's why 5.45 ERA. Minor league ERA is basically useless. I mean, I won't say never look at it, but take it with a major, major grain of salt. And you really got to dig deeper. Like, all right, like the BABIP 359, that is incredibly high. Look at some of the ERA indicators. XFIP was 3 on the nose. So there's really a lot that goes into a minor league ERA, especially one that's over 38 innings. But yeah, like you mentioned, a really fun arm. Power arm. You got that really hard slider in the low 90s. Like you mentioned, almost like it's not quite as hard as a Misiorowski slider, but those harder sliders don't really generate the higher whiff rates as like those like mid to upper 80s sliders or sweepers do. But we've seen a lot of players, a lot of pitchers make a living off that. And yeah, it might not turn out to be the super fun and sexy, like, 30% K rate or anything like that. But if it just generates a lot of weak contact, it's a lot of, weak hit ground balls or pop ups, that's still gonna get the job done, even if it's not a high K rate guy. But this is a guy that I like him a lot. And I do think he can be a starter. I mean, the fact that if he was still walking, like 12, 13%, like he kind of was in 2024, I'd be a lot more concerned. And like you mentioned, there definitely is that concern about, what can he go with outside of those two, really good offerings? Can he develop enough to be a starter? But I'll bank on the Red Sox kind of figuring out whether it's, his changeup. That probably would be the most likely option for that third pitch. We'll see. But at least he doesn't walk a ton of guys. So I think there's still 50-50 whether he ends up bullpen or rotation. Regardless, I think he's going to be a really fun arm. Just got to figure out what that role is, but still very young. I don't even think he's 20 yet. I think he's still, he'll be 20. He won't even be 20 till middle part of May. So he'll even start the season at 19. But yeah, definitely one of the more fun, buzzy, kind of projectable arms in this Red Sox system.
Yeah, for sure. Way more fun than the next guy, but the next guy is super efficient. It is John Holobetz, who came over in the Milwaukee Brewers trade that also brought over Yophery Rodriguez, who we'll talk about next after this one. But John Holobetz is basically a really great command and then kitchen sink arsenal. The main question for him, because he's been very successful. He's 22 years old in Double-A. You see on the F scores a 96 stuff, but a 124 control. So really great control, because he's literally, his high mark this year was a 4% walk rate on the year, 5.1 at A ball. And then he got even better, 3.8 at high A and 3.6% walk rate at Double-A. So just like flawless command here. But can he be crafty enough, because his arsenal is so mid? Can he be crafty enough to be a major league starter and get away with like he profiles as like a number 5 starter or something like that? But like sometimes, some of those guys will pop, and maybe he's Kyle Hendricks and is really good for, 5 or 10 years or whatever, just at like somehow, like beyond all bets, he's like throwing up 3 ERAs just because his command is that spot on. But that's the type of pitcher that Holobetz is. So like, as a Red Sox fan, are you excited for this, or like, is it just nice that, hey, we have all these high stuff guys? Sometimes it's good to just have a potential, good command guy for the back of the rotation that, they won't have to spend a lot of money on and can, burn some innings for a little bit while. Like, how do you feel about Holobetz?
Yeah, no, he's definitely a bit different than a lot of the other, top pitching prospects in this system. But, this is a guy, he's going to be a major leaguer. I'm I'm not entirely sure like what role that's going to be or how much impact. That's probably the better way to say it. How much impact he's going to have. But we've seen guys like this flourish. I mean, another example, former Red Sox who went to a different organization and thrived a little bit before he got hurt, where he was considered, more of the high floor, high command and control guy. That's Brendan Walter. I mean, Walter had, a better breaking ball than I think Holobetz does, but we've seen guys that aren't, the most, appealing to watch. Like, oh, this guy is not, he's not like a super fun arm. He's not, getting guys chasing outside the zone at a high clip or anything like that. But he knows how to pitch. The pitch ability, which is not something that you can really put a metric on or any stat on, but just you see guys like, all right, this guy just knows how to pitch. And yeah, he might not have the stuff of a Juan Valera or other names in this system, but he just knows how to get the job done, knows how to change the eye level of a hitter, change speeds, kind of sequence well, all that goes in the pitching. And like that pitching IQ with Holobetz is very high. I mean, again, he's going to be a major leaguer. Is he probably a number 5 or a swingman or more of like an up and down AAA to major leagues guy? Probably, but this guy's going to pitch in the major leagues. I'm just not sure if he's the most, appealing option for fantasy. It's one of those like real life first fantasy guys. He has a lot of value to an MLB org as a guy that they know that he's going to be a major leaguer, but for, in the fantasy world, he's probably not a guy you're looking at much right now.
Yeah, he's got sneaky value in your new points leagues where you get points for not giving up home runs. That's like the classic league you want him in, is that type of league. Number 10 is Yophery Rodriguez, who also came over in the same trade. Has not been great so far with the Red Sox, but they have been very aggressive. He played at high A as a 19-year-old, so that may have like really kind of affected his development a little bit here on the back of the baseball card. Because he has a 259 BABIP with Boston on the year, but the hit tool is still good. A 79% contact rate for a kid, a couple of years young for the level. Like, there's still stuff to like here, even though he only finished the season with 5 home runs and 10 steals. So it's like, how much power and speed are you really going to get? He's got a really good hit tool. Plate approach is really good, and he's young for the level. He's big, 6'1", maybe 6'2", at 180, 190 pounds. So, like, I feel like there is more power potential here than what we've seen before. But obviously, like, not the statistical season that you want to see when you brought him over in that trade, which was the Priester trade. So what do you think about Yophery? Like, how are you feeling right now as a Red Sox fan about Yophery Rodriguez, who you could see that scores 101 power, 102 hit, 104 discipline, 102 speed. So pretty mid across the board. But what we like there is that 143 age-adjusted WRC plus, because he is so young for that level.
Yeah, he's probably one of the more difficult ones for me to rank, in this Red Sox system, because you mentioned it really comes down to the format you play in, and this guy could be more more real life value to the Red Sox than a fantasy guy, because he's a solid defender, not like a Gold Glover, but a solid outfield defender. And yeah, he knows how to get on base. Like, there's 2 things he does incredibly well: is put the bat on the ball and get on base. But well, why that has not translated to averages? Well, he doesn't. As you mentioned, he doesn't really impact the ball a lot. Is there more power projection? Absolutely. I mean, he's got still got some room to fill out that frame. Does he though? I mean, we always say that, oh, if they add power, if they add, if they add projection, if they add muscle, some guys just don't. I mean, we'd love to say, oh yeah, he can add 10, 15 pounds of muscle, but maybe this is what he is. I've seen that plenty of times with prospects as well. But at least he has the good contact rates going for him, like you mentioned. 77, 78% swinging strike rate right around 10%, 12% walk rate. K rate around 19%, and he was still showing that in Boston, even though the slash line was, pretty bad in Boston. I mean, with a 90 WRC plus overall. But those are some, hit tool overall. You'll break it down to contact and approach. I think those are the hardest tools to kind of, rework and improve for a young player. So the fact that he's showing good bat to ball abilities, good pitch recognition at the plate, good eye, ability to draw those walks. Those are really, encouraging things to see in a guy this young, still 20 years old, just turned 20, like 2 weeks ago, early part of December. So he'll still be pretty young and probably get up to some Double A time. So I'll get to see him live this year, and he'll be a fun one to scout. But yeah, he's one where I think he'll make it to the major leagues. Just another one where I'm just kind of questioning, what is the impact for fantasy, and is he just more of like a points league guy?
Yeah, for sure. Number 9 is going to be the man of the hour, starting pitcher Jake Bennett. So we just had the trade the other day, Luis Perales for Jake Bennett. I was like, what are you doing here, Red Sox? Because Luis Perales, I love. He's a top 100 prospect for me. Jake Bennett, I don't even think was in my top 10 for the Nationals. I'll show you right here. F scores do not really like him. 96 stuff, 115 control, 103 FERA. But when he has been healthy, because he missed all 2024 for Tommy John, he's been pretty effective, like pretty good command, 6 to 8% walk rates. So really good command, good ERAs and XFIPs, which we already mentioned. You already mentioned, like, what does ERA really matter in the minors? You're going to be looking more at like K- walk, stuff like that. So I guess my main concern for him is like the stuff. I don't know how good it's actually going to be. Only 17.9% K rate in 45 innings in Double A. Obviously, the Red Sox saw something they liked, or else they wouldn't have traded in a prospect baseball trade Luis Perales, who can throw 100 for him. So pretty interesting. But Bennett, he's got like 6 or 7 pitches, mostly fastball changeup type guy. And it sounds like, from what I have heard, that the Red Sox like his extension is like one of the big things. And like, obviously you've got Payton Tolle. So like they're all on that, and they're on this big lefty kick right now, right? Like giant lefties. Tolle is big guy. Bennett 6'6" lefty. And you got Early as a lefty. So like you're looking for all these lefties, I guess. So what do you think about Bennett?
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting trade, and kind of made me scratch my head because, especially when, with him coming back from, well, both these guys are really coming back from injury, but I just feel like it was one of those high upside for high floor trades. Obviously, Bennett being the floor guy, and he was one that I didn't really value super high, especially in my fantasy focus rankings. Again, I could see him being ranked higher, and I think he generally is, and like the real like Baseball America, type rankings, because of the high floor being valued more there. Like, this guy is going to be a major leaguer, but it's just a profile that I've never been super intrigued by, and I mean that in the sense of the fastball changeup that just guys that just don't have a good breaker. I've been burned by too many of those guys over the years where I'm like, all right, I've learned my lesson. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Where these guys that just, I feel like having at least some decent break, and maybe your changeup's still your best secondary, that's fine, but where you don't have a good breaker that you can go to, that I think these guys, their opportunity to succeed is a little bit lower than others. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into pitching, but I just never been a big fan of the changeup first profile. Guys that just don't have a good feel for either of their secondaries, like Bennett. And he's got a slider, he's got a curveball. Neither one have been, that impressive, kind of like fringe average at best offering. So I'd feel a lot better about him if he, had at least one above average breaker. He doesn't. Fastball, as you mentioned, kind of middle of the road as well. So it's a good changeup. It's good command, but does that translate to a lot of strikeouts? I don't know. Generally doesn't. This type of profile. Maybe he bucks the trend, but yeah, I just don't think he's going to be a guy that is going to be one of those guys that really makes an impact for fantasy purposes.
Yep, I agree. But this next guy I really, really like. It's number 8, Yhoiker Fajardo. If you're looking to how to spell that name, good luck. No, for real, it's Yhoiker Fajardo, Fajardo. So Fajardo, I'm going to throw him up on the F scores here. Is really like an F score darling, especially an FERA, because he doesn't give up home runs. So 19.4 K minus walk rate, 72 innings. He gave up 0 home runs this year, Eric. So talking about new leagues where you get dinged for giving up home runs, like this is the man. 109 F stuff, 111 F control, 111 F ERA, and that's all through all 2025. A 306 JA ERA, which is basically Sierra from the minor leagues. So Fajardo, really fun player, throws a lot of strikes, doesn't give up dingers, gets enough Ks to be fantasy worthy. So Fajardo, really underrated arm, I think, in this pen or in this system. 19 years old still, only pitched an A-ball last year. I hope he's a fast mover, like over 15% swinging strike rates. So like everything here looks really good. 2 fastballs, 2 sliders with a slider and a sweeper and a changeup. And the change to kick change, like all his pitches grid out as above average to potentially plus. So like really nice pitches for Fajardo. I think that this is the time to get him because once he gets to higher levels, like if he does this type of stuff in AA, like he's going to be on top 100 lists, I think. So Fajardo, especially the way that the Red Sox are developing pitchers right now, that could be like the next guy that comes up with the Red Sox. What do you think about Fajardo?
Yeah, no, he's the guy you really look at, outside of the guys that, obviously they drafted some good collegiate arms, but for guys that were already in the system before that 2025 draft, if you were to like to pick a breakout on the pitching side for this Red Sox org, I think Fajardo might be the biggest potential breakout, on that pitching side because there's so much to like here, and there was immediate buzz, in this org when they got him from the White Sox, a year ago or a year and a half ago, whenever that trade, I forget exactly when that trade was, but there was this just immediate like, oh yeah, this was a fun get, for the Red Sox, and when you see like that immediate kind of hype and that immediate excitement about a player, that's one you have to keep an eye on, and he's already been turning heads and kind of backing up, the reason why there was so much excitement on him to begin with. He mentioned that he had a pretty good year in the minor leagues. Even got up to low A as an 18-year-old, had an ERA under 3. xFIP right there as well. So there was no element of luck. He even had a pretty high BABIP actually. So maybe even was a little bit unlucky, or but he was pretty good all the way around. K rate was really good, throughout the season, up near 29% overall, 31.5%, in the complex level. So, this guy that just did not give up a lot of contact in general. And you see a lot of those guys in the lower levels, like, oh, hey, look, there's a low batting average against, high K rate, but maybe the walk rate's like 13%. That wasn't the case with him. I mean, he's far from special, pinpoint specialist, but 9.5% walk rate for a young guy with his stuff, you can live with that. And I think there's still plenty of room to add frame. He's still pretty slight. If he could add another 10 15 pounds, again, easier said than done, as I said earlier, but this is a guy where I think you could really see maybe him get up and like the go from sitting low 90s to like sitting mid 95, 96, 97, maybe even touching, 98, 99. He's got good sinking action on that fastball, slider and changeup, both can miss bats. There's a lot to like here. So, yeah, I would 100% agree to him. I think where if you fast forward a year, we could be talking about this guy as like universal top 100 overall prospect, top 15 to 20 pitching prospect in baseball, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's the number 1 pitching prospect in this system. Well, number 2, I like Witherspoon a whole lot. We'll get into him in a little bit here, but if you're saying this time next year, it'll be Witherspoon 1 and Fajardo 2 in terms of pitching prospect rankings for this Boston system, I'd believe you. That upside is there for him to just take a really big step forward in 2026.
Yeah. Number 7, Marcus Philllips. This was a draftee, drafted 33rd overall by the Red Sox, 2.5 million out of Tennessee. This dude is huge, 6'4", almost 250 pounds, and big time fastball, slider, changeup, bad command. So like that's kind of the drill on him. Gets up to 101 on the fastball. Changeup is even in the low 90s, so like 93, 94 mile per hour changeup. That's how much heat that this guy has. 3/4 arm slot, pretty interesting. Marcus Philllips. You got to love these high-powered Tennessee arms from this year's draft class. I feel like there's like an infinite number of them. They just keep rolling out between Doyle, Franklin, Phillips. I know I'm missing a couple right now offhand, but these Tennessee guys are something else. So what do you think about Marcus Philllips here?
Yeah, they love that velocity there in Tennessee. They always have like one or two flamethrowers in every draft. But Phillips is one where I mean he's intriguing. I'm just wondering if it's more like future reliever kind of intriguing. Like you mentioned, the walk rate, command and control, both below average right now, and hasn't really established a consistent third offering. He got away with being pretty fastball slider heavy in college because he was able to overpower hitters with the fastball and high spin slider. That was hard for collegiate hitters to pick up. So he didn't really need to go to the changeup too often. So I think that would be the real X factor, in terms of developing the changeup a bit more to at least being a serviceable third offering. Like I mentioned, I've said it before. Like I don't think you don't need to. I mean, it'd be great to have 3 above average pitches, but if you have two above average to plus offerings and just have like a serviceable changeup or just a serviceable third offering in general, that can still work. But can he get that changeup to that point? Can he keep the walk rate to a point where he can throw enough strikes and really go deep into games, or see a guy that's going to be at 90 pitches in the 4th inning? Those guys just aren't going to stick as starters long term, and whether they transition now or later on after a year or two in the bigs, that remains to be seen. But I do think if you ask me to bet $100 my own money on bullpen or rotation for Phillips, I would say bullpen. But he's a really fun arm to the point where all right, the Red Sox are obviously going to give him a chance to start this year and see if they can kind of work on some of those concerns that I just mentioned. So they'll give him a little bit of a leash here, and I don't think that transition is happening anytime soon. But I do think probably reliever down the road, but a really fun arm. But if he's going to the bullpen and he's more of like a setup guy, obviously he loses a lot of luster for fantasy. But it's a really fun arm just to see how it goes this year, and if the Red Sox can kind of get those red flags to the point where they're not so red.
Yeah, exactly. Number 6 is middle infielder Mikey Romero, who has some proximity value here because he hit AAA already. And another name who's been around for a while here, but he's got pedigree, 21 years old. He'll be 22 for next year. Kind of an underrated season. 299, 452. 245, 299, 452 slash. So, on base rate wasn't great. A lot of Ks, not a lot of walks. So that's why he's got the 90 F score. But a 115 power, 102 hit, 95 speed. So he will steal a few bags here and there. But there's a decent hit tool here, 70% contact, 84% zone. He's still young, so there's still more time for that to develop. But what you really like with Romero is the 13% barrel rate, 91.2 average EV, 106.9 90th percentile EV, and 110.6 max EV. So there's a lot of power here from a guy who is still pretty young, still developing from a middle infield standpoint, former first rounder. So I think if Mikey Romero can get toward a below average to average hit tool, he's going to be a very interesting player. You see the age adjusted WRC plus too is a 161 with a 150 extra base hit plus. So the dude does damage from the middle infield spot, which is kind of rare for middle infielders. Sometimes you'll take that over your speedy middle infield types for fantasy. So I think that there's some value here with Mikey Romero. I think he's still, fantasy relevant.
Yeah, no, I think Romero is probably the least talked about, top-ish prospect in the system right now, just because there's always been bigger names in Boston or more enticing names to talk about, whether it's the big guy, the Anthonys, the Myers, Campbells, etc., the Teals of the world, or if it's some of those lower level like the Fajardo types that are just the fun, low, buzzy guys. Romero's just kind of just doing his thing and just flying under the radar for a while now. Like you mentioned, he's now knocking on the door to the major leagues. I mean, he had 45 games in AAA last year and 66 in AA. And he was, fairly young, 21. for the level and held his own. I mean, he's a bit aggressive. So I think that's one of his downfalls. But like you mentioned, the power is really impressive, and you wouldn't think so. Like you see Romero. I mean, he's not small per se, but he's not big either. Like you look at him, you're like, oh, 10, 12 homer guy. That's kind of like what like the eye test. But what's that old saying? Don't judge a book by its cover. And that's absolutely true in terms of like baseball and scouting as well, where he can really put a charge to the ball. And you already mentioned some of the metrics here. I mean, it was all above average quality of contact, both in average EV, 90th, hard hit was 47%. That's pretty damn good. 14% barrel rate, can really barrel the ball. So over a full year, maybe he's a 20, low 20s homer guy. But, contact skills, kind of lag behind. He's power over a hit right now. And I mentioned, a little bit aggressive. So not a guy that's going to be a high OBP guy unless he makes some tangible improvements in terms of how he approaches, at the plate. But, there definitely is some intrigue here. But it feels like he's one where he really could use a trade to another system, like trade him to Pittsburgh or whatever, Miami, where he could have a better chance to play. I just don't know where he fits into this Red Sox team long term. I know their infield's in flux right now, but they still have a lot of names, and you imagine they bring in somebody via trade and or free agency this year. We'll see. But I just feel like he's kind of the odd man out in this, like the long term infield picture for Boston. So I feel like he could be a guy that's included as like a fun little third piece in a trade, to bring in a pitching or a Ketel Marte trade or whatever it ends up being. So maybe he gets that shot in another org, but if he does, yeah, I think there could be some value in deeper leagues if that power continues to translate.
Yeah, interestingly, he played 27 games at third base this last year. So
Yep.
maybe he's like the Alex Bregman fallback, just in case they don't bring Bregman back or like get another third baseman. It's like, oh, well, Romero's our like plan C for 2026 or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
He did log some innings at third base. So that's a little interesting. Number 5 is a guy who's out for probably the whole season. It's Yordanny Monegro. He unfortunately had to get Tommy John in June of last year. He was so dominant. He had a 29.9 K- walk prior to getting hurt and having to get the TJ. The walk rate had dropped from about 10% to 5.8% last year. Just ridiculous numbers across the board. He was one of the most impressive pitchers in the minors as a 22-year-old at AA. So I guess on the sunny side of things is he's still young. He's 23 now. So like by the time he gets back, he'll be 24 and he's already pitched in AA. So it's not like River Ryan where he's like 27 or 28, coming off of Tommy John or whatever. So you don't have that situation. So he is like still young enough. But Monegro, super interesting name. I actually can't believe, I guess I can't, I get it. Because then you have to keep him on your 40 man until spring opens. But he was Rule 5 eligible and nobody picked him. I was like, if I like me as a Cardinals fan, I thought for sure Heim Bloom was going to be like, that's my guy. Like, go get him and then just let him sit on the 40 man until spring training and then put him on the 60 day. But the problem is it just creates like one more thing where you can't be flexible with the roster, especially the Cardinals are trying to do a bunch of trades and stuff like that this offseason. But I thought for sure, I was like, someone's going to grab Monegro and didn't go. So I guess, the Red Sox get to keep him around and throw him on the minor league IL or whatever, and not have to worry about it for a year. But Monegro, really very interesting pitcher.
Oh, absolutely. He's kind of like one of the names I was alluding to earlier where, there's a lot of intrigue here. You just haven't had a chance to, really gain any momentum with Monegro. It's like he can't stay on the mound. It's he's yet to really like rack up the innings and been able to take that nice step forward. We've seen plenty of glimpses of his upside. He's a guy that has pretty good velocity, 94, 95 sitting, can get up 97, 98. At times. Guy that's really lanky, projectable, like that fun body that you can dream on. Like if he adds bulk, would he be sitting 97? One of those types of guys, and a guy that has shown good feel for spin as well. 2 different breakers, curveball, and it's kind of like a slider cutter hybrid. Also throws a little bit of a split change. as well. So, a lot of good here. And the guy that you mentioned, like the success has been there. I mean, as I've said many times, you can't really take, minor league stats at face value all the time, but it should be said when a player continues to succeed, or not succeed too. Like if it's, it can go both ways. And Monegro's a guy that has generally had a lot of good success, especially lately when he's been on the mound. But yeah, just a bummer that we're not going to see him. I mean, I doubt he gets back in the minor league season next year. Probably a guy that could go out and maybe get some innings out in the AFL, though. I could definitely see the Red Sox doing that. That'd be fun to see him when we're out there next October, November. But yeah, definitely deeper dynasty league. If you roster like 400 plus prospects in your league, he's a guy that buy low. People kind of like, oh, I don't want to wait for another year, or maybe they even drop him depending on the league depth and how many prospects you roster. He's definitely like a fun upside flyer where it's low risk and potentially high reward. So yeah, definitely one to kind of just stash away, keep in the back of your mind for 2027.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to move into the top 100 type guys now. Number 4 is shortstop Franklin Arias with the Red Sox. I was telling Eric, I actually bumped him back a little bit in my fantasy rankings just because I'm not really sure how much power he actually gets into eventually. I'm going to throw his F scores up here so we can follow along. But he's got a 97 power on the F score, 107 hit tool, 127 discipline, 102 speed. 145 age adjusted WRC plus. He was not efficient on the base pass, 57%. So I can't imagine him running very much. 123 extra base hit plus. So we kind of like that. So that means he is getting into some doubles. And this is really what you're buying Franklin Arias for. So you see here, 19 years old, double A, 87% contact rate. That's not zone contact. That is contact rate. So this dude is a crazy good hitter. I threw a 65 out of 70 on the hit tool for him, 55-60 plate approach. If you like Jacob Wilson and you missed out, this is your guy, Franklin Arias. This guy has one of the best hit tools in minor league baseball, if not the best. Like he's up there with like your Kevin McGonigal and your JJ Weatherholt as like best hit tools in minor league baseball. And hit tool is very important. Like if you have a good hit tool in the minors, you're almost definitely going to be a major league player. And he's apparently pretty decent defensively too at shortstop. So I think Arias is going to be a really, really nice real life player. Like this is like a guy that you're going to love as a real life player. For fantasy, he's going to be good. Depends on your type of league. Points leagues, he's going to be a killer. In regular leagues, batting average, 10, 15 home runs maybe. But Arias is definitely a name to watch. And maybe as he ages, he grows into some more power too, because he has put up decent EVs. So like not great, but decent enough. So what do you think about Arias? And like, what do you think like the peak is for him, Eric?
Yeah, he's one where I also have bumped him down recently, just given that my rankings are fantasy focused, just because, I don't think he's more than like a 12 to 15 homer guy. I mean, he's far from like a Luis Ariz, like zero power guy. And so I do think there's some power there, but does he get more than, the low to mid teens at best? That's kind of what I'm questioning. But yeah, you alluded to, there is a super high level of hitting ability here. I don't like throwing around like 70 grades, a lot, especially on the hit tools. I think that's really risky, and we've seen 70 grades thrown on like Holiday. I think had some 70 grade hit tools thrown on him, and that hasn't worked out at least to that level. But I think the hit tool, it's really risky to put 70 grade on, and it's one where I would definitely consider it. With Franklin Arias, like you mentioned that upper 80s contact rates, like very consistently, and just low swing and strike rate. Low strikeout rate in general, just 10% strikeout rate, 10.1 and then 7.2% walk rate. So not a guy that like walks a ton either. He's just a guy that just puts the bat on the ball at a super high level. So I think the batting average floor here is higher than most every other, current hitting prospect. But yeah, is it more than 12 to 15 home runs? Is it more than I'm not even sure if he's a double digit steal guy. I mean, you'll say, oh, he had 35 steals and in 2024, I mean, again, minor league steals, especially in the lower levels, another stat you can just kind of take with a massive grain of salt because catching is not good. The talent of catchers, especially like, the defensive and just, controlling the run game for catchers that are like 18, 19 years old and low A in the complex, and especially the complex, for 30 of those steals came in the complex. It's just, you see a lot of high stolen base numbers for guys that turn out to be like, middle of the road speed guys. So, I think he's like maybe 12, 15 home runs, maybe 8 to 10 steals. But if you can get that at least, where he's at least like flirting with like a 15-10 type of year, with a 280 average, decent OBP as well, 340-ish OBP guy, I think that still has some value. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's format dependent. Points leagues, people are gonna love him. Real life, I think he'll have more value. Again, is that in Boston? Who knows? But yeah, definitely a guy that's gonna make it to the major leagues. And for that reason alone, that's why I still have him top 100. But he is more like back end top 100, where I feel like most people have him higher than I do. But I like him. I don't love him by any means.
Yep, I've got him at 75 overall in my off-season rankings. Whenever that comes out, probably in the next week or so here.
Dude, it's funny. I have him 75 overall right now as well.
Yes, look at that.
That is funny. That's great.
Yeah, there's brain power right there. So we're gonna get to the pitchers. We're gonna round out here with 3 pitchers. And I will start this off. Number 3, Connelly Early. I have been getting a lot of shares of Connelly Early in dynasty leagues this offseason because I feel like there's a lot of people that don't believe it. Like there's a lot of people that think that they're selling high right now on him, but I'm actually buying on Connelly Early because I really love what we've seen so far. I bumped him up to 58 overall in my fantasy rankings here. You can see the F scores really love him. 112 stuff, 110 control, 116 FERA. For a 111 grade. In the majors, we have a stuff ranking and an FERA ranking for him, but we don't have control yet because we haven't had enough innings pitched. But a 113 stuff in the majors and a 121 FERA in the majors. So like literally he's like right in line, if not better, on the F scores in the majors versus the minors. You see here, we have his pitching arsenal data. Fastball's good, 14% swinging strike rate on that. Changeup is killer, almost at 20% string strike rate on that changeup. Curve and sweeper are good pitches. So Connelly Early, like 264 JA ERA too. So that's a Sierra on the season in the minor leagues, 22.2 K minus walk. So he was just an absolute unit in the minors, came up to the majors, did not disappoint. 11 strikeouts in his debut. How are you feeling, Red Sox fan Eric Cross, on Connelly Early?
Yeah, no, I'm a bigger Connelly Early guy now than I was in like May, June, because I saw him twice, 2 or 3 times, I think twice, in Double-A in the like May, June range, and he was all right. I didn't not like him, but he didn't wow me. So I was like, all right, this guy's like a 4-5, and this guy's a major league pitcher, no doubt. But I was like, is he like a 2-3? I don't know. Now I'm not saying he's a 2, but can he be a good SP3? I think that's really where I'm at on him now. Is he definitely impressed me a lot more down the stretch when he came up with Boston than when I saw him in Double-A, 2-3 months before that. And it's a deep arsenal. You gotta love that. You got that lower lefty arm slot where it can be hard for guys to really pick that up. He mixes pitches incredibly well, uses all 6 of his pitches to both sides. Curve and changeup not as much to lefties, and sweeper not as much, not at all to righties, but really goes at 5 pitches on both sides to righties and lefties, and can miss bats with all of them too. That's like the really fun thing about Connelly Early, is that he had 29 strikeouts. Again, it's a small sample size, 19 in the third, but 29 strikeouts. But in the majors, he had 8 of those on the four seam, 7 on the curveball, 4 on the change, 2 on the sinker, 8 on the sweeper, none on the slider. But all had whiff rates above 20%, a couple above 30. Sinker was above 30, slider just below 30, and the curveball just below 40%. So a guy that really mixes well. And he might not be the most elite stuff guy, but a lot of different movement profiles, which I think is just really hard. Given all the different velocities and movement profiles that his pitches have, with that arm slot, the fact that he does command pretty well, above average, plus command and control guy, gets ground balls too. I mean, there's a lot to like here. So the fact that he kind of jumped Tolle in terms of maybe not in rankings. I mean, no, maybe he has for some people, but I think like if you told me like one of those two guys will be in the rotation to start the year, I think Early has the leg up for at least the start of 2026 for a rotation spot in Boston. And yeah, I think there's a solid SP3 profile here. I like Early a lot. I think he's high floor, and a higher ceiling now than I thought he had, back in May, June. So yeah, a guy that's really impressed me and how he developed as the year went on, and I think he's gonna be a pretty fun fantasy arm moving forward too.
Yeah, the comp that I threw on him in my latest prospect rankings is Christopher Sanchez. I don't know if you're a
All
fan
right.
of that comp there.
I'm a big fan of Christopher Sanchez. I had that guy was my dude on so many teams, both redraft and dynasty this past year. I freaking love that guy. But yeah, no, like I said, like, he was never a super highly buzzy prospect either. But now look at him; he's one of the 5 or 10 best. I say 10, one of the 10 best arms in baseball now. And who knows if that could be Early's path? But yeah, I dig that a lot.
Yeah. Number 2 on the list here is Kyson Witherspoon. I'm a huge Kyson
Oh
Witherspoon
yeah.
guy. Kyson Witherspoon, I got a 65 out of 65 on his fastball, 95 to 98. Slider, he throws in the high 80s, 60 out of 65 is my grade on that. He's got a cutter. I throw a 55 on 60 on that. The fastball's got big time IVB. He's got a curve and a changeup too. Pretty good command, at least way better command than his brother. Uh, but Kyson, I comped him to Emmett Sheehan and Nolan McLean mashup is what my
Oh.
comp is for him. But he's a young guy. Like he's one of my favorite FYPD guys to go after, especially the pitchers. But he's a young guy, a year younger than most of the other guys because he was drafted as a 20-year-old. And 30.1 K minus walk rate in 119 innings last year. Really, really good stuff. 106 whip. That's what you don't care about the ERA really. You care about the K minus walk and the whip. Those are the things that matter when you're trying to evaluate college guys. But this guy is just really fun to watch too. Like his pitch mix, like everything about him. Like you watch this guy and it's just so electric. Like I'm like, this guy is probably a stud number 2 starter when I watch him. I've got him at 51 overall in my latest rankings.
Yeah, I love Witherspoon too. And for anybody like watching on video, maybe somebody put my head in my hand when you were saying those comps. That wasn't like a oh god, those are bad comps thing. That was like he's hitting me right in the field because I love Nolan McLean. I love Emmett Sheehan. I think I love Emmett Sheehan more than his own family does at this point. Like, I'm probably like the biggest Emmett Sheehan guy in the entire world at this point. I just wrote about him, multiple times over the last week or so, and on Rotoballer and on my Patreon. But yeah, I was really, really excited when the Red Sox got Witherspoon. There's been 2 times that I can remember, with the MLB draft, obviously is a little bit different than, like NBA or NFL, where, obviously we're not going to see these guys for them by and large for, at least a year or two to get to the professional level, like NFL, NBA, to go right into it. So it's hard to be like, all right, I want that guy for my team. And you don't really get the guy that you're hoping for very often in baseball. But it happened with Witherspoon, and then it happened, what was it, 2019 or 18 with Tristan Casas. I think it was 2019 with Tristan Casas when they got him near the end of that first round that year. But yeah, when the Sox got Witherspoon, I was over the moon because this guy, it was a really strong, pitching class this past year, and he's a guy that I think could really, become one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. Like you hit on it well. Like there's a lot of positive tools there, both in terms of the stuff. Obviously, is really really good, and he's got decent feel too. He's a guy that there's no real concerns with, walk rates or overall command or any bullpen risk. Like this guy's a starter. He's a really solid frame, can really dial up the fastball, sitting mid 90s, topping out 98, 99. He's got a good slider, decent enough changeup and curveball. Those kind of lag behind. Throw that fastball slider. Also throws a little bit of a cutter there as well, to give it a different variation. So all those pitchers can really miss bad, especially that fastball slider. Like you mentioned the IVB. This is a lot to like, especially there'd be a lot to like in general, regardless of where he wound up. I mean, outside of like, Colorado or the Angels or something like that. But especially getting into when guys like this that have so much good going for them get into a good pitching development organization like Boston is, or like Tampa Bay, Milwaukee, Cleveland, the Dodgers, teams like that, where it's like, all right, that just adds another element of fun and excitement to this pitcher. So it was just great where I was already intrigued by him, and he lands with the Red Sox. I'm even more intrigued. Yeah, this guy is going to be a lot of fun to follow this year. And again, it wouldn't surprise me if, fast forward to 2027 and we're talking about him being like a top 10 pitching prospect in all of baseball. Like that upside is absolutely there.
Yeah. He also has some swag. If you're watching on YouTube or X, you can see he's got the K strut down for sure. Number one here is Payton Tolle, who most people are probably familiar with at this point in time, out of TCU. Huge dude. I'm going to pull his F scores up here because they're absolutely ridiculous. Like, he was one of the best pitchers in the minors easily this last year. F scores absolutely adore him. Like, he is like top 3, 4, 5 guys in F scores for the minor leagues, but a 126 F stuff, which, just in case you're wondering, I think the top F stuff in all the minors was Sakura with like a 141. So he's pretty close. 121 control with the 126 stuff is insane. 109 FERA, 116 grade total with a 170 Sierra in the minors, which is absolutely ridiculous. We have his arsenal stuff right here. Throwing a 95-mile-per-hour fastball with a 20.4% swinging strike rate on that fastball, thanks to the extension. That's going to make that 95 play up even more, because I think he's like number 2 or 3 or something like that in extension in the majors. He's one of like the top guys. So when you add that extension with the 95 average velo, like, that thing's coming at you way faster than the 95 when that happens. But changeup is also a great pitch, 27% swinging strike rate. Slider and cutter are okay. He'll get there. He's still developing some of these other pitches. But Tolle is a dude. And in the majors, he had a 113 stuff. So we do have an F score on his stuff in the majors. But Payton Tolle is my number 32 prospect at this point in time. My comp, it's hard to do this, but I had to. But I comped them to a young Tarek Skubal. Like, I put young Tarek Skubal light just to like emphasize. Like, I'm not saying he's the best pitcher in baseball here.
Right.
Like, remember when he first came up, kind of. Still developing pitches around the fastball. But like, with the extension he gets from the left side, big dude, the fastball changeup combo that he's got going on, like, I really don't even know like who else you can compare him to. If you take like Eno's, stuff plus on the pitches, like, nobody else has the same stuff plus on the same pitches besides Skubal from the left side. So like, that's really what it comes down to on that comp there. But let me hear about Payton Tolle, your thoughts on him, and like, how do you have these 3 pitchers ranked here in your prospect rankings, Eric?
Man, it is so close because I have them currently Tolle, Early, Witherspoon, but mainly because the proximity factor. I mean, I think if I ranked them on upside, I would flip Witherspoon and Early. But I love all 3 of them, and I just ranted and raved about Witherspoon. So it's one of those things where it's hard to rank a guy last, but someone has to do it. But Tolle is one in both regards for me, and I think he's I guess a good buy right now because I think once he kind of fizzled out a little bit after that debut and Early emerged, and there's some question, oh, is Early better than Tolle? And it's a fair question, but I'm still a huge Tolle guy. And just the fact that he now gets to kind of like learn from Garrett Crochet, another big 6'6", 245, 250-pound lefty who, primarily, is a fastball cutter, slider sweeper type of guy, not a direct comp by any means. And Tolle was way more four seam heavy than Crochet was. But I just love that there's a kind of like some type of a similar arm, that already has become one of the best arms in baseball, a Cy Young caliber guy that he can really learn from. And Crochet could take him under his wing and kind of show him, all right, you got the good stuff. Here's how you maximize it the best way. So that's really exciting that he gets to learn from Garrett Crochet. obviously in the good Red Sox system, there's a lot to like here. Yeah, he'll have to cut back the fastball usage a bit. 64% with the Red Sox. That's a bit much, but there's a lot of swing and miss potential. I mean, he had a 30% whiff rate, about 5% above league average. Zone contact rate allowed was 75%. He just wasn't getting hitters to really chase much outside the zone. It was a really low chase rate, but I think that'll tick up in time when he really learns. All right, let's not go just four seam. All right, let's go with that slider. Let's go with that changeup, down and away a little bit more. So I think you'll see that definitely tick up. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. I think this guy is a potential number 2. So that's really exciting because like the Red Sox, even if they don't bring in that, Joe Ryan, Freddie Peralta, Cole Reagans type to be the number 2, maybe, Tolle emerges and is that 2, or maybe even earlier Witherspoon down the road. They have 3. I think it'd be hard pressed to find a better trio of pitching prospects in one system than that trio for the Red Sox right now. And I'm so huge on Early, great potential, great stuff, great mustache, which is probably the best thing about him. Just a lot to like with Payton Tolle, and like that debut against, going toe-to-toe with Paul Skeens. Yeah, the Pittsburgh lineup is absolute trash. I get it. But to go toe-to-toe with Paul Skeens in your debut, that's pretty tough no matter what the lineup is, that you're facing. And he had 8 Ks, in 5 innings, 2 earned, out-dueled Skeens. That was really fun to watch. So, yeah, I'm a big Tolle guy in every sense of the word.
Yeah, so that's our top 20 prospects for the Red Sox, or at least mine anyway. Eric's are probably quite a bit different, or a little bit different than some of these guys. But thank you for watching, listening, YouTube. Follow Eric at Eric Cross MLB. Follow me at Fantasy Aceball. Eric, what else do you have got going on right now? I know you've got you're starting to ramp up for the preseason at this point in time, and you've got your series is starting to roll out with catchers coming. So what's going on over at the tool shed?
Yeah, no, a lot. I almost love doing off-season content more than in-season content. In-season, which is still fun, but it kind of gets like, it's cut and dry. It's like this almost kind of like repetitive. But off-season, data is stagnant. It's not changing. We can slice and dice stuff. Really dive into team rankings and positional rankings, which is really fun to do. Kind of like, I like breaking rankings down instead of just like, all right, here's 500 names. It kind of gets overwhelming at times. So. I've already been kind of writing up my positional rankings, both for Dynasty and prospects on my Patreon. Now I'm starting up the tool shed episodes, for the podcast. You'll be coming on, later on in the series. Looking forward to that, and got a lot of the great guests lined up. You got the Catcher Dynasty ranking, episode coming out on Friday. Got a great guest for that. So yeah, really fun time of year. Just love breaking down rankings and getting other people's perspectives. Like you mentioned, our rankings probably differ, but that's the fun of it. There's, it's fun to get different perspectives and kind of like compare and contrast rankings and have those discussions. And it's a really fun time of year. So yeah, hammering those out 2 a week, all the way up through. I think those go through like early February. So about a 2.5 month series here. And then they'll get us right in the spring training. So yeah, I think the dead of the offseason is starting to get behind us, and we're starting to really ramp up here. It's lovely time of year.
That's right. Some people have lost. They're out of fantasy football. They're coming back to baseball. It's the prime time. Yeah, exactly. Cross back over the line. Red Rover. Yep. This is Red Sox over. I don't know. I try to do something with that. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to MLB Data Warehouse, where you can check out all these tools, get the F scores. Again, John coded the F scores now, so they're going to be updated live on MLB Data Warehouse as the season goes on now, instead of just a one-time F score for major leaguers and minor leaguers. So that's the only place you can get that. So make sure you subscribe, and make sure you tell John you subscribed because of me, so that John has to pay me money. So thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out. We will see you next time.